Hey class. Today I want to talk a little bit about veganism because it is an issue of great interest to me. I don't know how things were where you grew up, but where I grew up, everybody ate meat. Vegetarians were very few and far between in the Midwest in the 1970s and 80s. And vegan, I'm not even sure when that term first arose. When I first became aware of it as a kid or a teenager, it was a slightly ill-defined, kind of mysterious sect of vegetarianism. So, like a vegetarian, but even weirder. Now, obviously, it's gone from being a very niche thing 40 years ago to being something that's far more mainstream today and that a lot of people are taking great interest in and passion in. But veganism is a catch-all term. Well, not catch-all, but it encompasses several different phenomena. Veganism includes the diet, so we're talking about plant-based diets, removing all the animal products from your diet. It's also a lifestyle choice. It's about the way you clothe yourself, that you're not buying clothes that come from animals, so no leather, no belts and shoes made out of dead animals, and that kind of thing. And then there's more to it than that as well, because that kind of hints at an underlying set of beliefs, principles, and ideology that ascribes inherent rights to animals and believes that animals possess many of the sort of cognitive phenomena that you find in humans, the range of emotions, for example. So a vegan might talk about a cow being artificially inseminated at a farm, and the cow interpreting that as a rape and being psychologically traumatized in the way that a human would be if they were raped. Now, that's a very bold thing to say. I don't know that there's much science that would lend much credence to a belief like that. I'll give you another example. Refugees presenting at the southern border of the United States were being separated from their children. Those children were taken away and put into cages. A vegan might say, oh, well, that's exactly the same phenomenon that we see with cows having their calves separated from them, that they also are having their children abducted and are being psychologically traumatized in the same way, in exactly the same way as the human refugees at the southern border. Bold. Very bold. I think, for me, humans are not separate from the animal kingdom. We're part of it. We like to think of ourselves as sort of floating above the animals in some sort of special classification that sets us apart. But I don't see it that way. I think our veneer of civilization is wafer thin. We are beasts. Do we have alternatives to eating meat? Yes, we do. But is eating meat in and of itself a moral issue? I would argue no. I think the way there are things surrounding it that are, the way we keep animals, we raise them, slaughter them. If we're intensively factory farming animals, shoving them into crates where they're living lives of 24/7 torment and suffering, that is a moral issue. If we're creating massive amounts of animal suffering that's just not necessary, that is a moral issue for me. But in and of itself, a human being eating another animal, I do not see that as a moral issue any more than I see a lion eating a wild pig in Africa a moral issue, or a tragedy, or a murder. I don't think it's any of those things. That's me. A lot of times when you hear vegans talking, there is an assumption that animals possess souls. I don't personally believe people have souls, much less animals, so that's not really part of the equation for me. I see us all as animals. I see animals eating other animals as an intrinsic part of life on Earth. It is what happens on Earth. This is the way it works. And the fact that we are particularly smart, that we can come up with alternatives, doesn't make it wrong. And I think viewing animals as having some sort of destiny other than being consumed, when in reality, most animals will be consumed by people, or more often, by other animals. Being consumed is the destiny of most life on Earth. And seeing it as a tragedy, I think it's nice. It's coming from a place of compassion, but I don't feel like it's reasonable. So for me, vegans have a lot of things right. They have got the health benefits of switching to a plant-based diet right. It is hugely more beneficial to your health to take animal products completely out. They are absolutely right when they talk about the environmental impact of factory farming and intensively farming animals. It is disastrous and unsustainable. The fact that people in the US and UK and much of Europe are eating so much more meat than is, if you were just going on what you need in terms of protein, we are going way over the top in terms of the amount of meat we are consuming. And that is unsustainable. If everybody on planet Earth were eating meat in the way that we are in the West, it would be a disaster. So it's not sustainable. We can't carry on like that. And the vegans are right about that. They're right about the health benefits. They're right about the environment. There are a lot of very, very good reasons to stop eating meat. I don't think you need to say, well, it's immoral. To me, that is simply not a persuadable argument for most people. So if you are vegan and you are looking to achieve your ends of prioritizing animal welfare, reducing the amount of intensive farming of animals, then there are ways to go about that without hanging everything on the immorality of eating animals. That is your belief. And what I would compare it to, and I don't think a lot of vegans would like this, but what I would compare it to is the people in my life who are anti-abortion. Now, from their point of view, it is nonsensical to say that the moment after a child is born, it is a person with all the rights of a person, and yet the moment before it is born, just moments ago, it was discardable organic tissue. That is a nonsensical distinction. That if this is a person, then this is a person too. And those people in my life who believe that think that I'm a fool. They think that anyone who denies that, to them, obvious moral truth is deluding themselves, is refusing to be reasonable. And I think it's the same thing with vegans. They see eating meat as obviously wrong. They see it as obviously immoral. And anyone who doesn't share that point of view, there's something short-circuiting in their head. They're not being honest with themselves. They're not intelligent. They're not using science. Whereas from my point of view, I think it's the vegans who are relying more on the sort of cloud cuckoo land, compassionate approach that lacks intellectual rigor sometimes in relying on this morality argument, because it's not very persuasive. If you don't already share that point of view, that animals have souls and that they experience the same emotional spectrum that humans do in the same way that humans do, if you don't share that perspective, then it's not going to be obvious to you that this is a moral choice. And you're going to have a whole lot of trouble persuading people otherwise. Stick to the science, stick to the environment, stick to the health benefits, because those are sound and persuasive arguments, and they make sense to anyone who's prepared to just look at plain facts. So that's my 2 cents on veganism. Don't abuse them. They take enough abuse online. Don't add to that. Be open to the ideas that they're presenting, because a lot of them are very, very good. And I think that we'd all be better off if we switched to plant-based diets. Personally, I have cut meat way, way down in my diet. I haven't completely cut it out. But I am heading in that direction, and it's because I agree. I agree with a lot of what vegans believe, just not all of it. And you don't have to either. It's life. It's your choice. Pick and choose as you want. Thanks for listening.